And it is that time again, and we could not be any more excited. Welcome to a very special Combat Coach edition of UFC 257, McGregor and Poirier. And I tell you what, if you watch this on Wednesday, and we gave you all the picks for all the fights, my main man, Ian Parker, was 12-4. And don't forget, he's got all of his premium picks, because that's a big difference. Premium picks at The Coach Picks, incredible site, and you guys can play along with us, win along with us. And Ian, I also got to tell you, congratulations, the newest member at CBS Sportsline. You got to be excited about that.
I am super grateful for the opportunity. Not going to let you guys down, and I'm pumped. This is awesome. We're going to do it. It's going to win. That's all we're going to do.
That's exactly right. We're going to win all the time. And don't forget, our big sponsor of the show, mybookie.ag. And right now, and there's not a better time than right now, if you go and load up your account, use the code COACHPICKS, you're going to get a 50% reload bonus. I'm giving you cash money right up from the jump to make all these picks. Now, remember, the difference between his picks and his bets, some of these are going to be 400, minus 500. In MMA betting, you either put them in a parlay. You don't want to lay that amount of money most of the time. We'll educate you here. We'll tell you what to do right here. So let's jump right in. Now, there's been a lot of drama surrounding this card the last 24 hours, and we're going to get into some of that coming up. But first, the first fight on the board, flyweights. Bazi, minus 115. I knew I was going to stumble this right from the Zhumagarlov, minus 115. The over 2.5, minus 245. The under coming back at plus 205. Please save me from that last name.
Zhumagarlov. So
yeah.
Here's the deal. You got Albazi, who's a prospect to really watch. In his last fight against Malcolm Brown, won by triangle. I just feel like Zalgas might have the edge here overall in his game. At minus 115 each, this one's a tough one to pick. With flyweights, usually not a lot of finishes outside of the champ, Figueiredo. So I could do like the over here in this fight.
Okay, very good. The over, and what he's talking about, comes in at minus 245. That's if it goes over 2.5 rounds. Then you would cash that ticket. All right, let's go to the second fight on the card. Lentz and Evlov, featherweights. Lentz coming in at plus 400. Evlov, the big favorite here, minus 575. It's one of those favorites I was just mentioning here. The over 2.5, minus 270, and the under coming back at plus 210. What do you like?
So I do like Evlov here, and even in a parlay, he's a little expensive. So if you want to get a little creative, I would take Evlov to win by decision. I believe that's way better, either at plus 110 or minus 120. Even that's the way to go. He's a decision machine, and Nick Lentz is very tough. So I don't see Evlov finishing him, but he's going to dominate him for 3 rounds en route to a win.
All right, very good. Our third fight on the card today, Andrew Sanchez, plus 110 as the underdog. Mahmoud Muradov, a minus 140. The over 2.5 coming in at minus 150. These are middleweights. What do you like in this fight?
Give me Muradov at minus 140. Sanchez, a jiu-jitsu technician, won his last fight by knockout. I think he's going to be a little too comfortable on the feet, which is where Muradov is in his wheelhouse and at his best. Give me Muradov for the win.
Very good. Next fight, fourth fight on the card, Prochnio, plus 250, taking on Khalil Roundtree. This is a name that a lot of MMA fans know. He's had some big-time wins, and he's had some big-time knockouts on himself. He is a minus 330 favorite, however. The over is 1.5 rounds, plus 145, and the under coming in at minus 175. What does that say to you?
I do like the under here. I believe that Khalil will get the win. He is someone I would throw in a parlay more than anything. This fight just kind of plays into his wheelhouse in the striking department. He's become very composed. He's matured throughout his career. He's not going to go guns a-blazing. As long as he stays in the pocket and really understands his opponent, he should get the knockout win.
When you say stay in the pocket, what do you mean?
Meaning not all over the place, just pretty much staying in front of his opponent with the head movement, making sure that he's not just within range. It's if you're a fighter, you kind of understand those terms. So I do apologize for going outside the limb there. But if he's going to bounce around and not just stay composed, he's going to give his opponent every opportunity to throw something wild. If he stays in there, hands up, and really falls into his wheelhouse, he should win this fight, no problem.
Hey, to be clear, 80% of the people watching this understand MMA betting, but we want those other 20% to get sucked in too. So we want everybody here and understand what we're talking about. All right, the next fight, lady. There's a lot of ladies on this card Saturday night. Juliana Pena, plus 105. Sarah McCann, minus 135. The over 2.5 rounds, minus 225. And the under coming back at plus 185. Pena is a fighter that's had several big layoffs. And you just wonder if rust is going to be her. How do you see this fight playing out?
In her last fight against GVR, she didn't look as bad, but getting submitted by GVR, that one's a little off, being that Panda, before her break, was known as someone who would dominate on top and not really get submitted. She's fighting Sarah McMahon, who is the better of the wrestler of the two, and her striking looked better last time. Her gas tank started to fade against Landsberg, so that was a little concerning. I don't know if either one gets to finish here. If I had a lean, I'd go McMahon as the better wrestler.
Okay, so you're leaning towards McMahon in this fight. Okay, our next fight, middleweights. Antonio Carlos Jr. taking on Brad Tavares. Tavares is a minus 125 favorite. Carlos Jr. comes back at minus 105. The over is 2.5, minus 180. The under coming back at plus 150. What do you like here?
Both guys up and down in the career. I just think that Carlos Jr. has got more ways to win. He'll be the better guy on the ground, and his striking has come a long way. Tavares may be the overall better athlete. Just haven't seen a lot in his game lately that has shown me that he's really grown, or maybe he just peaked too early in his career. Let's go with Carlos Jr. here.
All right, very good. By the way, if you're just joining us a little bit late, you're watching Combat Coach, the first original show brought to you by the Coach Picks, and you can get all the picks at the Coach Picks, MMA and golf. Now, I told you that there's been a lot of interesting stories coming out of Fight Week, and this next fight is one of those stories. For people that don't know the story, I want you to tell it as you're giving your pick, but this fight is going to come in at 157 pounds. It was not originally on the card. Frivolo is plus 475. Sarukian is minus 700. How did this fight get made, and why are the odds so wide?
Yeah, so Arman Sarukian versus Hazrat. Arman came in overweight, and his opponent just no-showed during weigh-ins, which means he didn't think he was going to make weight, or maybe he fell ill, didn't tell anybody. So we had someone who missed weight without an opponent. Then on the other side, you got Matt the Steamroller Frivola, who made weight and was waiting on his opponent, who also no-showed because apparently him and his coach cut their bracelets, allowed people into the bubble, and broke protocol. It was immediately fired from the UFC. So, being that happened, they were able to put together Frivola versus Arman at a catch weight of 157 pounds, and the odds are pretty crazy. Arman, I do believe, has more tools to win here. I think he's a well-rounded fighter, but neither one of these guys are going to finish each other. So, if we can get a line that goes over, by all means, take the over here. I don't, Frivola is a brawler. He's very tough. He can grind out wins. I just think Arman's got more tools in his toolbox, no pun intended, and that will be the way it is. But it's pretty cool that we still get a fight, and we got two guys that come for fireworks. So should be a fun fight. Glad both these guys come all the way to Fight Island and still get the opportunity to scrap.
It also speaks to how dumb it was to try and whatever was in that bag, you fight all this way and literally ruined your career with the biggest company in the world. I mean, it makes no sense.
Yeah. You got a guy coming off 2 big knockout wins. People were predicting that he was going to win this fight as well. So to potentially go 3-0, potentially 3 knockouts on a Conor McGregor card, so which will be the most viewed card probably even unless Conor fights again. Yeah, not a smart career move. I don't know. We haven't heard of him before with any trouble, so this is a little bizarre. But obviously, whatever was in that bag was really important. He was really willing to risk it all, and didn't work out in his favor.
Exactly right. It's hard to feel sorry for somebody who tries to do it like that, no matter what he was trying to do. Okay, the next fight on our card, Rodriguez taking on Ribas. And this is a strawweight matchup for the ladies. Ribas minus 320, and Rodriguez is plus 240. The over 2.5 coming in at minus 220, and the under coming back at plus 180. This is a budding star in the UFC right here.
Yeah, I'm all aboard the Ribas. Amanda Ribas is the real deal. Black belt in judo, black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Her striking game continues to get better every single fight. She is a threat everywhere. She's shown no weaknesses. She is fighting Marina Rodriguez, who is a very tough striker, but we saw in her last fight against Carla Esparza, takedown defense was not very good. And against Ribas, that's going to be a problem. I don't see her being able to keep the fight upright at all. I think Ribas gets the fight to the ground, and I think she's going to win this pretty easily. I would throw Ribas in any and every parlay you possibly can. I'm actually comfortable laying minus 320 on her, believe it or not. I do think she's a rising star, future champ. All aboard.
Okay, the Ribas train. All right, they are putting back-to-back female fights on this card, which is a little bit strange. But as our producer Cody alluded to, you've got to have, or maybe you said it too, you got to have Conor walk out at just the right time. It's a pay-per-view. It's not a fight night card. This is a pay-per-view, and people tune in at certain times to see certain guys, and they pay for it. So that makes it a big difference. So the next fight is Jessica Eye. Joanne Calderwood. Calderwood is a slight -120 favorite. Jessica Eye is -110. The over 2.5 and -345. That's robust. The under coming back at +270. Interesting fight here. What do you like?
Yeah, two women that are not really known for finishing. Both were finished one time in their last four, one by knockout, one by submission, and they usually don't get finished either. So even at that price, the over is the way to go. Parlay that with Hebos and maybe a Roundtree if you'd like. If you were to pick between these two, you felt like you absolutely had to, I lean Jessica Eye. I just think Joanne Calderwood's a little too stiff, a little too hesitant early on in the fights. And Eye kind of showed us against other competition, against like Vivian Araujo, who just beat Roxanne Modafferi. I won that fight handily, so her athleticism, I think of the two will be better. I think she also uses her reach a little better. So I'd lean Eye, but I love the over in this fight.
All right, very good. And now finally, we have arrived at our co-main event of the evening. Mr. Buffer, don't call me and try to when I was at ESPN. That's a true story. I actually, out of respect, I used his saying one time on SportsCenter. He actually called or got in contact with somebody and said, "Tell coach to stop taking my stuff." And I was like, wow, for one highlight, for one fight, but whatever. I digress. We've got Dan Hooker -140. And he went 25 minutes last year with Dustin Poirier in a loss. And then you have him taking on Michael Chandler, who's a really big name in the MMA community, coming over from Bellator to the UFC. Not his first trip to Fight Island, though. He made the trip to be a backup 6 weeks ago, but now he will be in this co-main event. Huge debut opportunity for him. Over 2.5, -120. The under comes back at -110. So that tells me that even Vegas doesn't really know what's going to happen in this fight. What do you think is going to happen?
I don't mind the over here. Before I get into who I really like between the two, both guys don't normally get finished. Dan Hooker finished one time by a body shot from Edson Barboza. Chandler one time with a broken ankle, and then by Pitbull over in Bellator. And both guys aren't necessarily known for their finishing overall. Hooker's been in some wars, and so is Chandler. I think with Hooker, he's going to look to keep the distance here. He doesn't want to get in tight. Chandler will be the better wrestler, can grind it out, also carries a ton of power. However, Chandler's got that up the middle knee that could keep Chandler from trying to wrestle. I think Hooker will jab his way to victory. I think his team and his coach Eugene Behrman will make him very well prepared for a fight like this. I also think he just fought overall the better level of current competition. Pitbull over in Bellator is one of the best fighters in the world, but beating, other guys that just weren't the same competition Hooker has really fought. And I think over at -120 is really nice, but I do like Dan Hooker. I think this is a better style matchup for him than it is for Chandler.
All right, very good. This is the one fight that when they announced it, I was really looking forward to, mostly because I love to see when a big name leaves one organization and they go over to the other, just to see how they stack up with that competition. And rarely do you see a fighter that comes to the UFC and gets a fight of this level right from the start. I think that's what makes this a really cool matchup for all MMA and especially UFC fight fans. Okay, my friend, we have now come to the main event. And when you look at this fight, it's a rematch from 2014, a 1-minute, 46-second knockout by Conor McGregor as he was ascending to the superstar heights that he still belongs in. Conor McGregor said on Thursday that he wants to fight 7 times in the next 18 months. He wants to be very, very active. He says, you will see what I'm talking about when I do it. If we're going to see Conor McGregor 7 times in 18 months, I'm here for it. But it's got to start this week with a win. Dustin Poirier, he's an absolute savage. He's a beast. He can hang. He can scrap. How do you see this main event?
Well, I don't see Conor fighting 7 times in 18 months. Not many guys do, and I don't think there's enough money fights for him to really do it, although I commend him for his commitment to coming back to the sport. He seems like he's in great shape. He seems like he wants it, which is the first big step for someone really coming back when they have money to not really do anything if they don't want to, right? So the passion's there. -300, -320 for Conor McGregor for me is a little bit tough to lay down. And, with Poirier, it's hard for me. I don't really know here. What I really actually like is over 1.5 at, I believe it's at -140. But I really like at plus 138 over 2.5 rounds. The way Conor's been speaking, I don't see him getting this finish in the first minute of the first round. And if you look at his fights, unless he does finish it quickly, he either wins or loses end of third, fourth round. Dustin Poirier, the same thing. He's not a finishing machine, but when he does, it's in deeper waters. He gets the guy to the ground with a really solid submission, or he will, jab them to death and throw the kicks like he did against Justin Gaethje. Look at the fight against Dan Hooker. He went 5 rounds. He's a cardio machine. I think we're going to see a war here. I think Conor wants that cage time as well. I think he wants to show everyone that he's evolved. I think he wants to show everyone that he's really back. And not saying that if he knocks him out in 60 seconds, it doesn't show that. I just think Dustin's a little bit better than that. Dustin's a very much improved fighter. I think he's a smarter, more mature fighter. The emotions are not there to knock each other out because they don't like each other. There's a lot of respect. And they keep saying they want to put on a show. Usually when that happens, that doesn't mean knockout right away. So I would take over 1.5, and I love over 2.5 for this fight.
And let's remember that this was originally a fight that Conor said, hey, let's do this for charity. And I was thinking, wait a second, if I'm going to see these two fight, it's going to be in the UFC octagon, and we're going to pay for it. And that's exactly what we got. When you look back, before I recap quickly, and you look at the card that they put together, and the fact that Conor has decided, I never thought we'd see Conor McGregor unless there was 15,000 people in an arena. I really didn't. I thought he would hold out for 2 or 3 years. And I think this speaks to the fact, and I think you said it, that he really wants to fight regardless of how many people are in the stands. There's going to be 2,000 people there, so at least you're going to have a crowd. But I'm a little bit surprised and actually respect Conor for taking this fight.
You know what? This guy's a true fighter. He's a true martial artist, and I think being away for so long, even after fighting Cowboy Cerrone, it seems to have a year lapse in between his fights. He's not a very active fighter. He wasn't a defending champion. Very, very inactive, unfortunately. And I think being out that long kind of speaks to you. And when you're out for that long and you see all these other fighters getting popular and some of these epic finishes that happen at the end, and then the last card had some – Max Holloway probably impressed him a little bit. So there's another guy that maybe Conor's looking at like, oh, hey, if I get past Dustin, maybe me versus Max for that vacant 155 belt. If he doesn't want to come back, that's an option there. Conor and Max both fought. That was Conor, I think, his first fight in the UFC, whatever it was. So, I mean, there's a story there. And who wouldn't want to see, if Conor gets past Dustin in an epic war, him versus Max Holloway for a vacant 55 belt? Sign me up. I'm in.
I'm in all the time. And who could forget last week? It's not going to happen. But when Max Holloway, fresh off of what we all believe was the greatest UFC performance of all time, said, I'll stick around for the whole week. And if somebody drops out, then I'm going to be in the main event next Saturday. And I don't think the UFC ever would have let him do it. But he would have done it. You best believe that. Okay, it's that time because we're coming up on the clock. Grab your paper. Grab your pencil. We're going to recap every single one of Ian's picks right now. All right, in the first fight, Albazi and the double Z. You like the over in that fight. Then Evolov. And if you had to lean, you would lean to it by decision, which comes in at plus 110. Then you like Miradov, minus 140 against Sanchez. You like the under in the Roundtree-Pacino fight, or you like putting Roundtree in a parlay to bring down his big number, minus 330. Then you like McMahon, if you had to, McMahon minus 135 in that fight. Then the Carlos Jr. fight, you like Carlos Jr. minus 105 over Tavares. And then in the catch weight at 157, you like Armand, but he's minus 700 to really get some value. You like the over in this fight between these two that agreed to fight earlier today. Then you've got 2 straight women's fights. Rodriguez against Ribas. You love Ribas. You love her so much. You say you'd actually lay the 320 in this fight. Or if somebody prefers to bring the number down, put her in a parlay. And then in the Jessica I. Calderwood, kind of the same thing. You would put them in a parlay. Even the over at 345. You said there's a ton of value, even at that number in the over, because these two just don't knock anybody out. Then finally, in our co-main event, you like Dan Hooker minus the 140. You also like this fight to go over. And then in our main event, you like the over at plus 155. That's 2.5 rounds. That fight is going 5 rounds, by the way, between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. All right. You've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these. And remember, these are his picks for his bets. Now, you can bet them all you want. But for his premium bets, you have to go to the coach bets because we're not going to lay minus 700. We're just not going to do it. So you got 2 different ways to bet. But either way, you're going to take them straight to the pay window. For the duck, quack, quack, Ian Parker. Welcome to Sportsline. Welcome to CBS. And our main man, Cody Merrow, who puts all of this together. I'm your faithful leader, the coach. I'm ready for UFC 257. And remember, Combat Coach is the only place you're going to get a pick for every single fight. Brought to you by MyBookie and the Coach Picks. We'll see you tomorrow live tweeting all over social media. For Ian, Coach, Cody, that was a horrible get off the show. Awful. See you at UFC 257. See ya.